It's 3 straight years of him either underperforming or being injured and not being relied upon on the court. And now we have this latest audio. Kevin Durant was on with Steve Nash and LeBron because LeBron moved off JJ Redick to now, do a podcast with Steve Nash because apparently that's a thing that we needed in life. Steve Nash, by the way, didn't sound horrible. We'll get to what he had to say. He sounded pretty good on it, if I'm being honest. But this was Durant talking about Darius Garland. We got a couple clips here. Here we go.
He is, and it's like, but the defensive side of the ball is where, people were attacking. Mm-hmm. If you want a chance to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, you are going at Darius Garland most of the time on the defensive side.
I mean, Durant's not saying anything that Boston didn't show us.
He's not saying anything Tyler Hero didn't say either.
Right. I mean, well, exactly right. But I mean, think about it. How many in those Boston regular season games did we know that was the game plan? They would target Darius, and they would make it obvious that they were matchup hunting to try to get on Darius Garland to try to expose him for the traffic cone that he is defensively. And so, there's so much of this conversation that I find fascinating, and it really is two-layered, though, Spencer. It's not only about the defensive side of things when it comes to Darius, it's the other side of this, and this is the heavily talked about side, which is can you have 2 6'2" or under guards play together in the same space? Can this be something that is something that the Cavs can get away with? And this was Durant on that.
6'2" and under guard is at a premium no more as a starter. Maybe as a backup, but you have to be.
We just talked about this the last match.
It's gotten compressed.
It has.
Right? It's compressed.
It has.
It's at either Donovan Mitchell, Drew Holiday, 6'3". Nah, you got to be.
You can't get picked on defense. That's the thing, because we play such a pick-on game that they will really, literally, if you can't guard, they will bring you up every play.
Time.
Yeah.
And if you're 6 foot, 6'1", and you're not a bulldog like a Davion Mitchell, Drew Holidays, on the defense side, or you're not an offensive flat-out savant like Kyrie, where you can score on dudes 7 feet easily in ISO, then I just can't see it.
I don't think it's an accident. One of the big takeaways I had from the draft night, and I don't see anybody else discussing it, but maybe that's the genesis of this conversation, or at least should be, past Cooper Flagg. You want to know the run of guards in the NBA draft this year?
Yeah, I can't say I noticed this.
7 straight. It goes Cooper Flagg, then it goes 7 straight guards. You want to know how many were under 6'4"?
0.
1. You got 1. He was 6'3". So, the amount of these guards, and not only guards that are big, that are being taken as those are the premiums in the NBA right now. You can't be 6'2" and be a guard in the NBA. If you are a guard, I think that's part of the reason why the Cavs were so interested in LaMelo to begin with. The idea that he's 6'5", 6'6", he's got a little bit of a wingspan attached to him as well. You can combo that up with Garland, with Donovan, and not have to worry about being small, while on top of it, not having to worry about being picked on defensively.
Yeah, can I just say too, this is part of the reason why I love when Fant is on, because you could feel like you feel pretty firm on a stance you have on something in relation to sports or the Cavs or whatever. And he is so passionate with his thoughts on things that he always makes you reconsider. You always leave a John Fanta interview reconsidering something that you talked about, because he's just so passionate about it. And that's what we love about John. And as I was sitting there listening to him, the thing that stood out to me maybe most, everything you're saying is true. Everything Kevin Durant was saying, everything John said. But the thing that he brings up is if you're going to run it back, and you're going to see if Darius Garland can, win you that championship and actually be a piece that helps you get there, you better be right. And I think that's the important thing right now is okay, last offseason, we wanted them to do something, but they didn't, and they stood pat. And it turned into a 64-win season where we had a lot of high expectations. And so it was the first year of their big change last year was you changed coaches, and that was supposed to be the thing. And it looked like it was going to be awesome. It looked like that was the right decision. Then you get to the playoffs, what happened. And now it's are you really going to do the same thing again? Where you make a couple small little tweaks and then just run it back and expect for a different result this time around. And I think this offseason feels like it's even more essential now that you make that bigger move. And I also sort of got to wondering, as John was talking about this, and we've talked about it as well, especially with the KD comment thrown in, is I almost wonder if Darius and Jarrett almost have to coexist together on this team, because the big thing we always say when it comes to, why you can make it work with Darius and Donovan and having an undersized guard out there on the perimeter that gets picked on a lot is that, you were so good inside when you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen to sort of clean things up.
What I think these clips are telling you, though, is that they don't believe that to be true. Like, they don't believe that Darius and Donovan can coexist, even if you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley being as good defensively as they are.
Well, I'm not even okay. So I don't. Did I say coexist? Maybe I should have said coexist. Maybe I just said like they basically like can only exist on this team together to like limit the damage. Because my thing is like if you had Darius, if you trade just Jared Allen, for example,
yeah.
And your solution is, well, we're going to have now Darius is going to be on an island even more by himself, and Mobley's going to be like more of a five.
Because the defense gets taken away.
Now it's like you don't have that extra help. Now it's all on Evan. You know what I'm saying? So like it helps to have like an extra line defender as in your front court.
Yeah, but
that
Spencer,
maybe erases some of the deficiencies of Darius Garland.
I get what you're saying, but the massive takeaway out of this should be the entire NBA is telling you Donovan and Darius don't work together. There was a time where maybe it did, and a very recent time where Donovan and Darius could coexist together. The game is moving rapidly. Like I brought up the NBA draft and the 7 guards for a reason, because look at how the NBA is viewing what is currently going on. These guys are valuable because of their height. VJ Edgecombe is valuable because of his height. Ace Bailey is valuable because he's 6'8". He's supposed to be 7 feet tall. He's 6'8". I don't know where the 4 inches got lost, but he's 6'8" as a guard. Like this is what people value in today's NBA. Go even further. The sixth overall pick, Trey Johnson, if he's 6'5", like just on and on the list goes. Igor Demin out of BYU, that's a 6'8" guard in the 8 spot. Like this is just how this works. I think the league is trying to tell you in so many ways. If you have these 2 undersized combo guards, you got a big fit problem, and we've been paying attention to it for how long? We've noticed that this has been an issue, but this is Durant, this is LeBron, this is Steve Nash, all laughing. They're laughing at Darius Garland in this clip. They're talking about how valuable he is, but they're talking about how valuable he is years ago, not how valuable he is right now. And that's a sad reality for the Cavs. Will they make the adjustments to what the league is currently offering up?
Well, and that's why when we talk about these trades and different things that can happen, the concept is splitting up Darius and Donovan. Like I think there are teams that can afford to have like one undersized guy depending on what you have around him. But having 2 is the issue.
I think you can get away with 1.
Yeah,
and even and Donovan's not
especially when you have one who's a scorer like Darius, because Darius is an elite scorer, but it's just like you have to have ways to sort of combat his defensive issues, and that's part of the reason why I bring up the Jared Allen part of it, because it's like if you don't have a way to sort of like right now the Cavs kind of have a way to solve that because they have Jarrett and Evan. But if you get rid of I guess my larger point on that specifically was like if you got rid of just Jarrett, would we see Darius get even more exposed than he already does?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like I think that would expose the larger problem.
I mean, he's already pretty exposed. I mean, Durant couldn't have made it any more clear.
True.
When we see Darius on the court, we're going headhunting for Darius.
Yeah.
That's the matchup that we want. We want to put our guy on Darius, and we'll switch all day in order to get on Darius because that's an easy bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's bad news for Darius.
You're
not hiding anymore. The league's caught on. If you want to score, go after Darius.
I think what's so interesting about this is that
openly talking about this on a podcast in July. My goodness.
That's the thing. Is like these are all conversations we've had, right? Like we've talked about can Darius and Donovan.
We've been talking for a couple years now about this for sure.
Is this the right fit?
But like these are
now it's being brought to light by
2 active NBA players and a former league MVP.
Some of the best players to ever play this game. MVPs in this league are all talking about this, and it's like, that's not good. That's not good. I mean, like you said, Steve Nash is the only one who brought any positivity to it, and his positive spin was, hey, back in my day, he would have been great.
He would have been great 20 years ago. Oh, fantastic. Thanks for the compliment, Steve. We touched on last segment the idea of, undersized guards and if it can or cannot work, and I brought up the draft, and you go look at the 7 picks past Cooper flag. They're all bigger guards. That's what this is. The league is moving towards being a bigger guard and just being bigger in general anyway. But it's something we've talked about for the previous couple of years. But as that clip was playing, Spencer, I couldn't erase the thought in my brain. And you might just say I'm Looney Tunes for this. Just take it for whatever it's worth. But LeBron sees all the conversation about him potentially coming to Cleveland. You think it's coincidence that in every trade scenario that LeBron is mentioned for involves Darius Garland in some way, and now he's on his own podcast talking about how Darius Garland doesn't work in the NBA and how Darius Garland isn't the right fit for the Cavs? It's a pretty vocal podcast he has right here. I'm just going to put that out there. Yeah. I'm just going to just float that one out to the masses. You do with whatever that you want.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking the same thing from a different perspective where I was like, if he's lay GM, as everybody calls him, Does this mean that the Lakers won't be trading for Darius Garland if they do make a LeBron trade?
I mean,
like, is he basically telling the Lakers, like, yeah, you don't want this guy?
Where else?
That's the problem. Like, I see what you're saying. It's like, hey,
he doesn't care about the Lakers.
He doesn't work. He doesn't work. So trade him for me, and I'll come save Cleveland. But like, if the Lakers are hearing this, do you think they're like, hey, the guy that like basically runs our team right now, he says this guy doesn't work. Do we really want him now?
I mean, I guess it works. It works both ways.
That's bad GMing if you're LeBron.
It does work both ways. If you were trying to, if you were trying to add value to yourself or get rid of value for Darius in the process, maybe you'd be. I don't know. Whatever. We got two Galaxy brain on this. You can slice it both ways. I'll concede on that. You can slice it both ways. I think LeBron, in his own right, though, I think he would be the type to be like, "Hey, Cleveland, you don't see this as a problem. I'm going to involve a former league MVP winner." And then Kevin Durant, who's won multiple finals, and basically two great basketball minds. And we're just going to have this chop it up conversation about how what you do and what you've been doing does not work in today's game, and how a guy in Darius Garland that you believe in is a defensive liability. Like you know how many people in the NBA suck at defense? There are so many guys that are just bad at defense in the NBA.
Go look up like all the defensive ratings, like player by player.
There are a lot of traffic cones out there. There's a lot of people that you just get matchup hunt and you can just take advantage of. And for some reason, these three were selecting Darius Garland as the talk of the NBA when they wanted to highlight.
Do we think Darius is ever going on that podcast after that conversation?
I mean, if I'm Darius, I'm livid at this whole thing.
Do you think Donovan?
I'm like,
do you think Darius, Donovan, who's very close with Darius, is going to go on that podcast?
I don't know. Donovan right now is too busy going after WNBA stars, so I don't know if he's got a say in whether or not he.
Oh, is he chimed in on that?
Oh, he talked. Well, yeah, in our defense. And this is why we love Donovan.
I didn't see his comment.
Donovan responded to Sophie Cunningham trashing the city of Cleveland by saying Cleveland in the summer is very, very nice. So he's got other battles. Apparently he needs to fight. His running mate in this whole entire thing is getting trashed by three of the best players the NBA's seen in my lifetime. And he's over there saying, no, Cleveland in the summers is great. It's a good time. Hey, Donovan, I know you're near the keyboard. Why don't you stick up for Darius?
I mean,
he's being stabbed in a podcast in the middle of the day, and you're not even paying attention. You're going after a WNBA player no one's going to remember 3 years from now.
And is
only famous because she sticks up for another WNBA player in Caitlin Clark. Maybe get to work on what matters the most here, Donovan.
In his defense, the Sophie Cunningham stuff did come out first. So maybe we just haven't given him enough time to respond.
Maybe he's got his midday siesta going on right now.
I mean, I don't know where he is in the world right now, but maybe he's busy with something.
If he's not taking a nap,
somebody
wake him up. Wake him up from his midday
siesta.
Show him
what's being said.
Tell him how his buddy, his running mate, is being lambasted in these streets, these audio streets left and right, and by a Twitter assassin himself and Kevin Durant. And the man has to pay attention because right now, if he wants to save this team, the talk of the NBA is the idea that Donovan and Darius together don't work and can't work because Darius can't play defense and they're too short.
Well, and what's it like from his perspective? Like it's fascinating because the comeback for him is just, okay, we'll prove you that it does work. Like we'll prove you wrong. But the problem is we've been
doing 3 years of evidence of him not being able to do that.
3 years of like proof of concept that it hasn't worked and that at some point it falls apart. And the other problem is from that clip too is like, it'd be one thing if Darius, I think you can tell when you watch the tape, like Darius does work hard to try to defend these guys. It's not that I think he's lazy. He's not like Tyler Hero where it's just like, I quit. Like you talk about traffic cones. I don't think Darius is a traffic cone.
I mean, he's small and he's not very strong. Yes, they just go around him.
He just can't defend like against it. But he works hard. He tries to defend them.
I don't need the try hard Hall of Fame. I need someone that can actually do it.
But that's my point. It's like it's one thing for him to like attempt to, but his problem is that he gets hurt all the time. Like they talked about like Drew Holiday, right? Like he's 6'3", but he's a bulldog, right? So he makes up for it because like he's gonna body you. Darius is like because of all the injuries, he follows you into the lane. One hit to the face and he's out for 2 months.
He puts his head into your hip and all of a sudden he's out.
It's like there's this fragility about him that I think has become an issue where like it's twofold. It's not only are they looking at you like, well, he's not a very good defender, but it's also like even if he tries to be a good defender, he gets hurt. It seems like every time he gets into the playoffs and like works hard to try to make up for what he can't do defensively. Like it's just always been an issue for him. And so I agree. Like I don't know what the solution is other than changing out some pieces.
And it's amazing.
Starting with maybe him.
Listen, we didn't need 3 prominent NBA voices to be out here in a podcast together ripping you for it to be reality. It's been staring us in the face for a while. But at what point will Kobe Altman wake up and say, the bet I made with these guys? And listen, I'll never begrudge Kobe Altman for going out there and trading for Donovan Mitchell. Like, Darius was here. It was what it was. You drafted Darius. Take that for what it's worth. When Donovan becomes available, you go ahead and you take your opportunity and you take your big swing and you make the trade and you go at it. And hey, maybe
it was the perfect trade
wrong.
too, because it was they banked on this is a guy that we think we can convince to stay here
for sure. But now it's been 3 years. We watched Darius absolutely suck in that Knicks series 3 years ago. Game 3, I can't erase out of my brain. We watched him then get injured in the past 2. Meanwhile, in some of these series, I mean, my goodness, there's games in that, even in the Pacers series this year, where it was like, what are we doing here? Game 5 was an absolute disaster from Darius Garland start to finish. Like we've seen it. I'm tired of this movie. And so that's why, whether it's John Fanta, who joined us at 4 o'clock, or whether that's Nick sitting there in the chair on most days, like, we've gone over the idea that they are very I mean, we're all at our wits' ends with this, but it doesn't feel like anything's changing. It feels like Kobe Altman wants to run this back one more time, and this is the big voices saying you're wrong here.
Well, and that's where, like, I wonder, Kobe touts so much development, learning from our playoff experiences, all these things, and like, I agree. Like, there's a level of, like, Evan Mobley can raise his game another step, and I do think Darius probably has a little bit of room to still grow, not physically necessarily, but like just from a game standpoint, like the conversation we're having. But like, that can all be true. But every year there's been like, okay, the first year you get bounced by the Knicks, you hadn't been there. Okay, that's your excuse, right? Next year you go back, you make some tweaks, you add a Max Strus, for example. It's like, okay, you made some changes, you still get bounced now in the second round, you're still not on that level. Year 3 of this, and last year, your big thing was we changed out coaches. And so that was your reasoning for keeping it together. The reasoning for keeping it together this year is what? Health? You think health is going to be on your side next year?
I'm out of answers.
That's the only reason. That and the development piece, which I do give some credence to.
Or they were just worried about one, there's a couple things I think they would tell you, and I think they did try to tell you this in the press conference. Development is one, with Atkinson having a full season, full off season,
which I do subscribe to.
Instead of him just being off in, Team France over there in Paris and helping out for the Olympics. So he'd have a full season. And then ultimately, I mean, I really do think a lot of what they're basing everything on is just the idea that
the Eastern Conference thing, like that there's this window because all these teams have injured stars now, and they can, because I get keeping it together the first time you lose. I get keeping it together mostly the second time you lose. The third time, after a new coach comes in and gets you to a 64 wins, and then it just falls apart. I don't know.
What I was going to say is I really do think it's the idea that if they're not going to get the best player back in return for a Darius Garland trade. Okay. And so I think they're concerned about the idea that if they get 80 cents on the dollar and they don't get the best player back in return, then it wasn't a worthwhile investment for him. And I look at that wrong. If you're constructed poorly and you need the pieces of the puzzle to fit right, then moving off of Darius might be the only way to actually make that work. So you would take what is perceived as a step back to potentially take a few steps forward. But for some reason, Kobe Altman has not been able to deal with that reality.
Well, and I do understand the concept of, like, you don't want to get less than what you think the players value. I 100% understand that. No, you don't. And I've been adamant on this station, like, you don't just make a trade to make a trade. Like, you don't just trade Darius for peanuts because
this is Kevin Durant, Steve Nash, and LeBron James telling you probably should make a trade to make a trade.
But you do need to get something back that is, like, going to be a fit for your team, is my point. You're not just going to trade for peanuts.
Can you think of a time where 3 NBA players like this, and obviously Nash isn't playing right now, but 3 people of this caliber sat around a room and just dogged a player the way that they did right here?
Yeah. No, I can't. This is kind
of wild.
But like I said, I understand not just trading him for peanuts, but I also understand where it's like you at some point you have to change up something other than just being like, well, hey, if we run it back again, now we have a new coach. And if we run it back again, well, now we have a coach who had more time to spend, and we have Lonzo Ball now. Like there has to be a deeper thing. And I think when
just
Kobe
check, Donovan Mitchell hasn't woken up from his sleep yet.
And I think when Kobe doesn't make these moves sometimes, I think it starts to look like he just is he's too afraid to give up on them. I think that's what it becomes. I don't necessarily think that's true because Kobe has been pretty aggressive in what he's done. But I think sitting here today, as you see other teams make moves like Milwaukee and whatnot, you're like, well, why can't they make a move? Like, why can't they what are they so afraid of? It comes off that way, but that might not be the case behind the scenes, to your point, that they probably are waiting to get the right value.